Good afternoon, everyone. Before I get into the details, I just wanted to get a lay of the land from the audience. We are talking about tech interventions to drive athletic performance. Can anybody guess what was the first ever tech intervention that was used in the world of sports to drive athletic performance? Any guesses? It was a stopwatch. Stopwatch was the first ever documented intervention to drive athletic performance. And then the world of tech has evolved significantly, right? If we looked at in terms of how technology is being used in the world of gaming. For example, when AI came into picture, the first ever documented application of AI was to use AI to play a game of checkers. And I was told at that point of time, the memory of the computer was 0.28 KB. Can you imagine? 0.28 KB was used to play the game of checkers. And then about few years ago, we have heard about how Google DeepMind has defeated one of the most accomplished Go player in the world. While that is happening in the world of gaming, here we want to explore in terms of what's happening to drive athletic performance. We are fortunate to have a good set of people on the panel. So Nishant, from your perspective, how do you see this space evolving? What kind of technologies are being used to drive athletic performance?
No, I mean, you rightly said, right? So technology is continuously evolving and sports is, in a way, the first adopters. So I think there are three technologies which I feel that it's going to impact sports like anything, right? So first, you rightly said AI. So now generative AI, right? So it's changing all the aspects of sports. It's happening in US. It's going to happen in India as well. Let's say from scouting to athlete training to performance optimization, it's happening already. Second is, I think VR virtual reality is going to become reality. Pretty soon, the VR devices are getting more affordable, and the technology is evolving, right? So, any grassroots level or village level player can also get trained by topmost coaches. That is going to happen. That is the second one. And I think the third one is, overall viewing experience is going to be improvised by the newer technologies. We all see, let's say, new matches on the phone, right? Now, I think the evolution in the viewing is also going to change. And I think that is overall going to set the pace for next 2 to 3 years.
So you expect a lot of tech adoption to happen. I was thinking in terms of how many of you have seen this series called Bodyline? I mean, if you say yes, it'll give up your age as well because it came many, many decades ago when I was in school. And if you remember, the captain over there teaches the seamers how to bowl up to the body by using a set of keyboard pins. He sets up a field and then shows these pins and then tells the seamers how to bowl, right? And look at how much advancement has happened. Now you can actually simulate, like the previous speaker was saying on the previous session, where you can actually simulate everything and give them an opportunity to drive that particular performance. Thanks, Nishant. Joy, you're associated with Prime Volleyball, and you've been in this industry much, much longer. So how do you see this evolving over a period of time?
I think for me, technologies are only hope. Just like 20, 25 years back, we had the whole thing where India only had landlines. And everyone said that we would never catch up in terms of infrastructure because, if you have 4 landlines to 1,000 people, how are you going to ever do it?
Right.
And it actually ended up that we didn't actually adopt landlines. We instead jumped on to do other things. And we just basically adopted mobile and leapfrogged our way through. So for me, technology is the only way to do it because in a disparate country like ours, with a very hidebound system where you have a situation where the basic development the federations and all, they're badly designed. Sport is a state subject, but the center is also interested in it, the Olympic Association. It's a very tangled structure. So the only way that you're going to cut through a lot of this is if you have technology. And I'll give you a great example of how this is actually happening, not just in our volleyball league. There's a grassroots league called the Brahmaputra Volleyball League that's happening in Assam.
Okay.
And that was started off by a former Indian captain who started off by just saying, can children play? And it's a fantastic concept because they play village against village. And what they do is instead of having money from the outside, one village will say that, okay, I'll take the children across. Some other elders in the village will actually roll the ground. Somebody will actually sow the nets and somebody will prepare food. So the entire village is involved in it. So what happened there is they just got in mobile phones and used mobile phones to have, which is a tech device. Now we don't regard it as a tech device. For us, this is a daily use. But that was actually used to actually broadcast the games, have people all around the world who were adopting teams and saying that, okay, I'm going to contribute 15,000, get a team, a school team and adopt it and use it. And also allowing the kids to see themselves and other kids, villages, and the kids in other villages to see it. So what happens is technology need not just be AI at the top of the spectrum. There is a lot of technology even there, like mobile phones and all, broadcasting, using mobile phones, editing technologies, because that make that game look better, which are actually changing the way we engage with it. And I think that's the most important thing, not just to look at technology at the cutting edge, but also to look at the manifold ways in which technology can impact how a league or how a sport is chosen and seen in the country.
That's really heartening. Heartening on two accounts, Joy. One is what we have seen in Lagan is being implemented for the game of volleyball, which is really heartening. And second one is tech doesn't have to be like super tech, right? It is grassroots level tech for meaningful interventions.
Can also work, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Abhik, you represent Kerala Blasters, one of the most successful football club league. How have you seen tech adoption, especially from an athletic performance perspective? Because athletic performance doesn't need to be purely in terms of sport-related metrics, right? It could be about their physical development, about their health. So it'll be good to hear some perspectives from you.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me here. I think from a football perspective, if I narrow it down to that, India, of course, has taken on its football journey very recently, in the sense that there are many more established leagues around the world that are hundreds of years ahead of us in terms of tech adoption, in terms of just the level at which they operate at. But because India intrinsically is a tech-driven country, because somewhere, software and coding runs in our blood,
Right.
because we power most of the world's technology. Indians do.
Right.
A lot of innovative solutions at very cost-effective prices are now coming to the fore for sports tech in India. Now, when it comes to a team specifically, and I can talk about our team or a football team specifically, there are three major areas in which we deploy tech. One, of course, is medical recovery and rehabilitation of players. The second is scouting and analysis and strategic decisions for the coaching staff. And the third side of it is where we use technology is, say, to complement our marketing efforts. And for a club like Kerala Blasters with a huge fan base, we use a lot of tech to determine what our fan base might look like, how we can deploy certain marketing activities, etc., etc. These are the three broad buckets. And then, of course, from the broadcaster side, you've got a heavy influence of tech that looms over them to represent the game to the audience, to make sure that it's engaging enough. And over the last 5 years, what we've seen is a lot of Indian firms are coming up with a lot of innovative technology that is cost-effective compared to, say, international tech solutions. And B, I feel, I can give you an example. For the All India Football Federation has this system known as the AIFF Central Registration System, which was designed in-house in India by a tech team that operates out of Bangalore. It is one of the best systems I've ever seen in terms of its use case.
Okay.
The thing that it does is, you have a player, when he moves from team to team, that player is basically registered and then eligible to play for a competition. If he's played for previous clubs or academy, they are then, compensated for the time they've spent on developing the player. But the implementation of this technology has had several countries look at it and say, how simply was it implemented and how cost effective it was. So we are seeing an emergence of that in the Indian market, and I think the next 5 to 10 years is a very encouraging landscape for aspiring Indian tech companies who want to permeate into this space and create solutions that cater specifically to teams and, say, broadcast for sports.
Thank you, Abhik. In fact, that's exactly what I was also talking to someone. If India is a powerhouse for tech, but we are developing tech for enterprise applications. If you look at any of the coder says, I've spent about 80 hours coding, but I don't like my job. But the same guy says, I like football, so why don't you use coding for football, and then you can end up spending 90 hours and not even stare at your wife, right? So those kind of interventions, and if we are able to marry the passion with the development, a lot of things can happen. And I see the IT industry going down that particular path. And thanks for sharing those insights. Coming to Kanishka, you're doing some interesting interventions, belonging to an education institute, trying to develop a curriculum in sports. Can you talk to us more about it, what you're planning to do, and how does it contribute to the overall sports development and also athletic performance?
Yeah, sure. So you see, educational institutions, historically speaking, they have been very intricately connected, very intricately linked to the sports sector. Taking you back in history, schools like Eton, Harrow, and Rugby, these were the ones which capitalized on the fact that football was gaining prominence back then. They worked in close collaboration with the Football Association, which was set up in the 1860s. They not only took this game of football to the masses, but they also worked in standardizing the game of football, getting all the rules, regulations, and guidelines on board. So it were these schools back then. Now, 2 centuries later, I have a very firm opinion that even today, this partnership between educational institutions and sports organizations, sports federations, and even sports clubs. I'll be giving you a couple of examples from the football world, since we are so closely working with the footballing industry. Football Club Barcelona, it has collaborated with Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and they are working in AI. They are working to build these systems which can enhance the biomechanics of players. Then we have a wonderful example of, Liverpool Football Club working with the John Moores University of Liverpool. Once again, trying to enhance their athletic prowess through collaborating with this educational institute. We have this wonderful example of the biggest football club of the world, which is Real Madrid, working with Universidad Europea. They are creating more sports management professionals and investing a lot in R&D of sports, once again trying to enhance their athletic and player prowess. Now, as far as India is concerned, I believe we are still in a pretty nascent stage. We have started moving in the right direction, but the journey we have covered is a little on the younger side. Like, for example, in 2023, we at IMT Ghaziabad, we collaborated with the All India Football Federation to empower Indian football through research and innovation, trying to, build on the researches that we are doing. At the state level, we are working with Ladakh Football Association, once again trying to help them take football to the masses in Ladakh. And even at the grassroots level, we are working with our local district association of Ghaziabad. So the journey we have covered in terms of collaborating with educational institutes, it's on the younger side, but at least we are making heads in the right direction.
Very good. So do you also do any intervention at the K-12 level? That's where it matters the most.
We are trying to expand. We are trying to expand our bandwidth because this center was set up in 2019. So in terms of that, we are still fairly young. So a lot has to be done, but at least we have started.
Very good, very good. It's a good initiation. Now coming to you, Joy, in terms of you represent Prime Volleyball. You've been associated with KKR before, and few more sports franchisees. Can you talk to us about 1 or 2 use cases of how tech has been used over a period of time?
Tech comes into a variety of things, but I want to take one is I will talk about athletic development, and I think Abhik is talking a lot about the kind of things that are happening there. But I also want to talk about the fact that other sports have absolutely no chance of doing
Can
anything.
we maintain some silence in the room, please?
Other sports have absolutely no chance unless they put tech at the center of their discussion. Because what is happening is, football anyway, cricket anyway has this huge mass of people watching. So whether they innovate, don't innovate, the truth is that I've been a part of ESPN Star Sports for 7 years. Cricket innovation, beyond a few graphics changes, nothing much has changed very much beyond the T20 game itself. And the way the game is played has been changed, but the way it's been broadcast has not been changed very much. However, for somebody like any other sport, you need to do it because your fan base is much smaller. Therefore, your reason to educate that fan, get him closer. So I'll give you a simple example. If you get 2,500 people in the stadium, so right now what do? We say that the 2 hours, the guys in the stadium, it must be fun. So we are having a live this thing where somebody's tweet is put up out there. Okay, we are having something called a dance camp. So whenever there's a break, you put on some catchy music, somebody's dancing. It makes sure that people are getting involved. Now, where we are trying to use tech is saying that if we know a guy's seat, okay, what can we do? We can say that, okay, put out your best tweets. We'll choose the best tweet, and the moment that best tweet comes out, we can identify this guy's in seat 5A. We show him on screen as well. Because you have to delight people in a way that cricket does not need to at this point in time. You have to give them experiences that really make a difference. Similarly, with your fans, the kind of discussions you have, how can you make... So the first thing we did is we cannot go in one language anymore. Because today, if you're not in speaking to, and especially volleyball is it's not just a rural, urban sport, it's a rural sport as well. If you're not there in Malayalam or Tamil or in Telugu, we are not reaching a very, very large audience, or in Hindi. So these markets are important to us. But where now we need tech is to be able to say that, can I now curate discussions going on? So when match is going on live, can I have chats going on at the same time where they're discussing? So a lot of for us, a lot of the development, not only at the league level, is about saying that if I do not make my limited number of fans happy and grow it, I do not have a chance as a sport of making an impact in the country. And I think every sporting league is trying to do it. So we are trying to do it. We have put on heart rate monitors on coaches also, because it's really interesting for them to see how it's changing. Are coaches getting tense? Is this a tense moment? Because if you don't create drama, see, whenever we look at sport, we say, okay, he's watching basketball. If he's not, he's watching cricket. It's not. He has a choice between watching that and Netflix or the news or 37,000 reels on Instagram or TikTok in some other country. So if you are not catching his attention, he's going to go elsewhere.
Correct.
And I think a large part of all our efforts are centered in saying, can I make him so much, him or her, the center of this experience, that he wants to stay there? And I think that's the effort from all other sports other than cricket.
Very good. In terms of all of it is interconnected, right? One, you're saying that you're competing for the mind share of the viewers. And if you're able to get a successful share of their mind, then the viewer comes to the stadium. And there's a correlation also. No player would like to play to an empty stadium, right? And if they see viewers and the public in the galleries, that in a way motivates them to give their best performance.
That, and then, see, one is seeing people in the stands sitting out there. The second is also seeing themselves on TV. Third is heroes. See, all sport is formed of push and pull.
Correct.
One is pushing people to play. The other is a pull of stardom and saying, I want to play like that guy.
Right.
And this combination is what gives you a sporting ecosystem that works. So having the fan there and having the fan as not just as a passive participant but an active participant is a huge part of what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. Nishant, you work for NFL. So how are you seeing adoption of tech? Again, the key point being on the athletic performance and interventions.
No, I mean, I see it, it's very changing landscape. And actually, Joy said it very rightly, right? That not only at the fan level, but also on the athlete level, I think one change is coming up, which is personalization. So the biggest role of AI is how to personalize things, right? Which were generic earlier. So let's say how Instagram is doing it, how YouTube is doing it, right? I mean, it understands what you really want to see and it gives you content which you like. So I think same thing is going to happen in sports as well, in terms of fans, also in terms of athlete. So I'll give you an instance, right? So I mean, we have been working with New South Wales Rugby. So I mean, Australia is a rugby nation. So they have the best of the coaches. Now what they wanted to do is they want to train the grassroots level athletes in the villages and school and college level, right? So I mean, in the discussion, we come up with that, how to create a personalized training modules, session plans which are personalized to the particular athlete, right, who doesn't have access to based of the coaches, who cannot go to, let's say, Melbourne, Sydney, in a way. So I think, and that has enabled them to, and the platform has enabled them to scout based of the talent from the remotest of the areas, just because, the platform was personalized. And I think the same thing is going to happen in all the sports, in all the countries, in all the regions. So even in India as well, I mean, if you are, even in cricket, if you are playing best of the cricket, you have to go to Mumbai or Bangalore or, let's say, in the metro cities, right? But there is a lot of talent in other part of the countries, right? In tier 2, tier 3 cities, in villages. So how to give a personalized content to them, as well as personalized training to them, I think that is the next phase which we should explore on, and which we should focus more on.
Yeah, fully agree with you. And if you look at in terms of highly competitive and precision sports, for example, like Formula E or Formula One, I was told that now people are using video analytics to show the drivers, and it kind of to reiterate in their mind, sometimes in a split second you have to make a decision. And if they are habitually inclined to make a wrong decision in a split second, they want to show those video analytics to them again and again and again, so that it internalizes into the psyche that they should avoid making this kind of mistake. So fascinating to see that happening in NFL and the other areas as well. So Kanishka, from your perspective, what else you guys are planning to do from education intervention related aspects?
See, it's more about trying to build the sports culture in India, because what we have researched is sports culture is somewhere down the line directly linked with your performances. So let's say if you increase sports culture, it will end up increasing sports literacy. Increasing sports literacy leads to increase in participation. Increase in participation leads to increase in competition. And once the competition increases with, of course, the right kind of infrastructure, right technologies, right things in place, you can end up producing elite athletes and top athletes. Now, as far as technology is concerned, we feel that at the right end of the spectrum, that is at the top end of the pyramid, technology has made inroads in India. We have wonderful technologies in place. For example, players today have an information of how many kilometers they have run in a football match.
Right.
In how much time are you completing your first 100 meters and your 200 meters and your 400 meters. Similarly, you even have data on number of passes you were trying to attempt, number of successful passes you made, number of crosses you were attempting, number of tackles or blocks you have put in. In fact, even the XGs, that is expected goals in a match, they are available. But my question always remains, do we have technology in place to enhance sports culture? That is at the left end of the spectrum, at the top end of at the bottom end of the pyramid. Do we have technologies in place which can encourage or motivate people, that can encourage or motivate children to take up sports? And even more important, which can motivate the parents of these youngsters, because parents, they are the first teachers of every child. The first motivation or inclination that we get to play, it comes from our parents. So it's more about trying to build the sports culture, developing or building technologies which can, encourage or motivate parents. We have started doing certain interventions, though again, I'll say we are still in a pretty nascent stage. For example, we have released certain booklets which basically tell people that if a child can learn A for apple, B for boy, then why can't the same child be taught A for athletics and B for basketball? If a child can learn ka se kabutar, kha se khargosh, then why can't the same child be taught ka se kabaddi and kha se kho?
Right.
So these are very minute things, very basic things that we have been doing, but we are at least making certain interventions.
I think we have a long way to go. It's also a change in psyche that all of us also need, right? For example, I'm also a culprit of that. Whenever a game happens, I look up who can give me sponsorship tickets rather than spending my own money on those tickets, right? A little bit of a change in our own individual disposition to the sports should happen. Coming to you, Abhik, how are you seeing this tech adoption from Kerala Blasters and also the wider football league perspective?
So when the Indian Super League started off, and football in India, I would say at that moment existed but was not polished. You had the I League, the NFL as it was called before that. When the Indian Super League came in, what it focused on was professionalizing the sport.
Right.
And when you speak about professionalizing the sport, there are certain standards that you have to set. Now, for example, in terms of medical recovery and rehabilitation. And I know this firsthand before the Indian Super League came in and when Indian football was not as widely focused on. Say, for example, medical recovery, medical procedures were not the best, let's put it that way. There was hardly any tech intervention. Nowadays, you can see that most of the medical teams in Indian football, in the IPL, within cricket, they have at their disposal the latest tech that can now help players recover quicker. You have all sorts of machinery available, machines that can now circulate ice through, your body if you're wearing a sleeve.
Right.
Instead of applying an ice pack and sitting there for 48 hours, this thing might, reduce your inflammation in 16 hours. We've also seen a lot of this tech earlier. They used to be like huge components only available in the best hospitals, for example, and you had to then move the player there. There was a huge cost involved. What technology now has done is it's mobilized these things. Now you can take them on the go. They're portable.
Right. Right.
And teams usually carry a lot of this tech around with them when we're traveling. So we carry GPS, heart rate monitors for a football team. That's like the bread and butter. That's what a strength and conditioning coach bases his strategy off. So in football, it's about, of course, about how much distance can you cover, what directions can you turn in, how quickly can you do it.
Correct.
What is your heat map during a game, and it also helps prevent injuries in certain cases. If you feel a player is being overloaded and is close to now maxing out, and this data is monitored live during a game, right? We have these statistics appearing to us live. The players are transmitting that data as they play from the field, allowing then the conditioning coach to tell the head coach, okay, maybe you need to take this guy off, you need to change him, or he's very close to an injury, perhaps best to take him out, etc.,
Right.
etc. So this is one side of it where we are seeing a lot of, and this is nothing new, right? The advanced football markets have had these technologies around. Now we are adopting it slowly. So this is on the performance side of it. The other change we are seeing is with the coaches, Indian coaches. Now, we had a generation of coaches that did not believe in using technology because they felt their voice and their charisma was enough to maybe coach. But now a new generation of coaches is developing, the millennials, who believe that technology can be used to convey a message in a more visual manner, which players will maybe understand better. So, for example, coaches animating strategies and now showing it to players before a game. The good thing to see is Indian coaches are now believing in it and taking it up because they feel this is now where modern day football coaching is going towards. So you have coaches working on, say, a training session to animate it, and 5 minutes before the players go onto the pitch, you show it on the screen. This is what we are doing. These are the movements. Very quick and very easy for the players to take that in and understand.
Right.
Same before a game to show that visually. Also, visual representation in the sense when coaches now are using technologies to say prepare for a month, schedules, meetings. any individual clips that they cut out that they feel a player needs to see, pushing it to the player directly who's part of that congregated platform. Now, all of this tech adoption is happening, and within Indian football at least, a lot of it is for the better, because you've got, you reduce a lot of time that is spent on maybe doing this manually. You accelerate certain processes on the medical side, and you're also giving players information that they need to absorb and then go forward on. So this is the basic tech adoption that has happened. And then of course, like I mentioned earlier, there are certain minute tech adoptions happening wherein clubs are now investing in CRMs to understand what the fan base is. And for example, at Kerala Blasters, we are blessed because we have a huge fan base that comes to games, that buys tickets, that buys merchandise. So we are trying to now profile a customer to see, okay, this child can maybe be redirected to our Young Blasters Academy near his home, because he's been coming for 5 straight home games with his family.
Understood.
So that sort of market research, data-driven approach is now being adopted, at least in Indian football, because clubs are now seeking to cement themselves and create more of a fan base in their own community. The Indian Super League is 11 years old. Okay. Of course, some clubs are, like Mohun Bagan and East Bengal and Mohammedan, 100-year-old clubs with established legacies. But a lot of the other clubs are brand new.
Correct.
And for them to derive that loyalty from their fan base and from their community, we also need to understand how we can maybe convert them to fans within a spectrum of services that we can offer.
Right.
So at the surface, and in a nutshell, these are some of the areas that we are adopting tech in.
Thank you for that holistic explanation, Abhik. I was thinking only from an athletic performance perspective, but injury in a game like football where the incidence of injuries are very high, using tech to ensure that the athlete recovers at the shortest possible time is the greatest intervention that one can bring to the table.
It's interesting you say that, because when Tokyo happened, before 2021 Tokyo, and remember Tokyo happened just during the lockdown phase.
Right.
So I took a series of sort of explaining Tokyo, because the Indian Olympic team is a lot like that you have people who come from very different backgrounds,
correct,
socioeconomic backgrounds, and even to the extent of, and it's a very interesting thing, even explaining, like for example, Japan has very high quality, very high tech bathrooms. To use a bathroom in Japan is a challenge. And we literally actually took them through that, saying that don't get scared, this is what you can do.
Right.
This is how you can use the Google translation software. This is what you need to do, because you're absolutely right. If you have an international player who's waiting to go to the loo and doesn't know how to say it or is too embarrassed to say it,
correct,
you're in trouble. So those are the kind of things that impact. And I think you made the very fair point that now what's happening is, instead of a coach just coming and saying, this is our tactic, he has the technology to be able to animate that and put it up there,
right,
and say this is what it is. And I think that's what a lot of things it's going to happen, because using visual aids, using things like Duolingo, using translation software, a lot of those are what is going to drive development. Because you're right, what we are getting in terms of drive and discipline and fitness, you're getting a lot of it from the small towns, from the villages, from very particular places in Jharkhand, in Odisha.
Yeah.
Okay, but they sometimes lack those comprehension skills. So if you can use technology to bridge that gap,
correct,
it makes a huge difference.
Correct, absolutely. And those simulating softwares or immersive technologies help you to also try out different conditions. For example, all of you know the embarrassment that the nation had to go. One wrestler gave the badge to the sister to collect the bag in the Olympic village, right? And the amount of embarrassment it has created at the national level. Some of these things can be preempted with the tech adoption. The question is whether people are willing to internalize that particular technology.
Sport is run by the human side of it, the desire to compete, the experience that you feel from being part of a team, that feeling that you get with winning and losing. That technology can never replace. So when I spoke about coaches using certain technology aids, it's not to take out the ethos in their coaching, but it is a manner in which you can best utilize time and visually represent sometimes what you want to say, especially in a sport like football, for example. I can speak for that because that's my bread and butter and that's what I'm involved in. We have a mix of Indian and international players, right? Not all the players belong to the same city, not all of them are from the same background, and not all of them have the same comprehension skills to understand when coaches are trying to explain something to you. The easiest way for everybody to understand is if it's visually shown to them.
Right.
It is the easiest adoption or absorption technique for athletes to understand. Sometimes something that maybe a coach might be explaining it, 50% of people are able to understand it, especially complex game strategies. For example, if somebody doesn't know English, like we have players from Manipur and Mizoram who struggle with the language. As much as the coach is good enough and he's competent enough, sometimes there is a language barrier for them to understand what he's trying to explain. And if you're able to visually show it through videos and through animated art as to what that player has to do in a game, it leaves no room for confusion. So we're not taking away the human side of it. The coach obviously has and is what he or she is in terms of how he or she will strategically prepare for a game, how they will motivate the players for a game. Technology will never replace that, but it will aid it in order to get that message clearly across to now what is a more diverse athlete group that you have in team sport, because it's not just from a certain area where maybe you can speak a local language and get the message across. So in order to maybe circumvent all of that and create a situation where everybody is able to take that on board at the same time, is why technology will aid it, not replace, but help it.
And it also, thank you, Abhik. Thanks for sharing those perspectives, and we're running short of the time. I'll just bring this to a close. It also takes time, right? I'm reminded of experience with my dad. I had the liberty of working in telecom early days, early 2000, gave him a phone. He used to lock it in the cupboard and roam all over the place. Because there was I used to ask him, why are you putting the phone in the cupboard and going all over the place? He said, I don't see a need. It's the same dad, 84 now. He uses the phone to the maximum because there's an Uber, there's a Facebook, there's an Instagram, and various other use cases. Likewise, in the sports, it's not just about technology being available. There's also a compelling reason from an user perspective to internalize that particular technology in a natural fashion. Thank you, Joy, thank you, Kanishka, thank you, Abhik, thank you, Nishant, and thanks to the audience. We bring this to an end now. Thank you very much.